half of our employees are sat at a desk in a very low risk environment, much like we are now. And the worst you might get is a bit of a backache or a paper cut. But then the other 50% of our employees, leave our office settings and go into some of the most dangerous environments on the planet.
All right. Well, welcome to our conversation today. I'm Scott Cuthbert, and we're following up from the Safety on the Edge 2026 conference that was held last month in Baltimore. And today we've got Nigel and Myriam to talk about WSP Canada and the award that they received at the Safety on the Edge conference this year. And if you're like me, you might not be familiar with WSP. But when I looked it up, it's like one of those giant organizations that you may not have heard of. So I'm going to turn it over to Nigel, and he'll definitely give us a little intro into WSP Canada and WSP maybe Global, and then set up the award nomination for us. So Nigel, yeah.
Yeah, hey, yeah, Scott, thanks, and delighted to be here to discuss a little bit about WSP Canada, our journey, and yeah, absolutely delighted that we won that award in Baltimore at the Safety on the Edge conference as well. I'm joined by Myriam. Myriam's my colleague and partner in crime at WSP Canada. We so. Your comment about WSP and not knowing us is not uncommon, and we hear that a lot, which is kind of ironic, really, given WSP is actually the largest consulting firm in the world now, and the it's an enormous company, and I've been part of WSP for about 2.5 years. They're they're a company that's grown both organically but through large acquisitions of similar firms as well. Um, in Canada, we the company would describe itself as a company that is engaged in the professional services space. So that includes engineering, design, but also construction management, technical services, science-based services. We're a service provider to industry in a variety of different sectors. In Canada, we have four main sectors that we support, which is our earth and environment kind of business. We have a property and buildings business, energy and infrastructure business, and transportation and infrastructure business. So those are our four main sectors. But there are, and we've got about, it varies obviously dependent on projects and temporary employees and stuff, but anything between 12 and 15,000 employees at any one time within Canada, but globally up to about 90,000 employees. So an enormous company with a very broad service offering. And I can tell you a little bit more about I mean, my role is supporting the Canadian business primarily, which we, at any one time, we have about between 30,000 and 50,000 active projects in a year. And there was a varying dollar value between kind of $10,000 up to hundreds of millions of dollars in scale. And so that in itself is part of the challenge and what interested me in joining WSP in the first place. I know the type of work we do is very interesting. We do things that are, half of our employees are sat at a desk in a very low risk environment, much like we are now. And the worst you might get is a bit of a backache or a paper cut. But then the other 50% of our employees, leave our office settings and go into some of the most dangerous environments on the planet. And often that's for short periods of time or long periods of time, depending on the projects that we interact with. So it's a super interesting challenge and one that I was really excited to be part of when I joined this company 2.5 years ago. And it's yeah, it's been a really interesting company to work for and trying to do all those things and address all those challenges has been fun. But this award that we got was really, for me, acknowledging part of that journey that we've been on, really.
Yeah, well, that's and if Miriam wants to jump in and add some context to that, I'll turn it over to her. But that's you know, again, you can imagine the range of risks and scenarios and situations that you guys have to contemplate. And so, how did you? And I know the award submission process is pretty comprehensive, and
Yeah.
I can't remember how many pages and questions and uh, information they collect. But how did you guys go about tackling that process?
Yeah, and it's a good question. So, the you know, like a lot of big companies, we weren't starting from zero, 2.5 years ago. And actually, Miriam has been around a little bit longer than I have, and her and the team had done fabulous work in taking us on this journey already. But the thing was, is when I joined the company, I spent the first kind of 100 days just with Miriam, just assessing like what it was that the company did, and really listening to our workforce and saying, okay, what is it that we do, and what are our challenges, what are our issues, and what are the things that you're facing, and that really helped shape the plan, really, of what we needed to build, and what we needed to address for our company. It wasn't just kind of Nigel Dunning sat in a little quiet room, finger in the air, thinking, "Hey, like this would be great to cook this up and make this work." But when we were filling in the submission, we really tried to tell that story about what it was that we did and how we tackled that. So it started with that real assessment of thinking about what's our employees exposed to, what are they telling us, what do they need. And as you can, like I said, the breadth of service offering is enormous. So trying to create a management system that works for everybody is very difficult. And you can't have a one size fits all. Um, because we've got people that do projects that might be only a couple of hours, and they're just literally in the office to drive from one place to another. But then people that are going out on projects for years and in very high complex environments and everything in between. So, trying to make it work and understandable, digestible for people was a challenge, and obviously leaning on terms like HARP and HRO, they're very trendy in the safety world, and but often I find with terms like HARP and HRO, it's how do companies make sense of that into their management system as well? And you see lots of companies fall into that trap of thinking, okay, well, hey, this year we're going to do HOP, and they create a program, and they get everybody excited about harp, and then it really doesn't often materialize into anything because they don't focus on, well, how are they going to operationalize those concepts of harp and HRO, and how do you bake those into how do our company do business. So the approach we took was we looked at those principles of HARP and HRO and thought, well, how do we weave these things into how we work, and how do we make sense of those things? So that was a real key factor as well, and it helps steer our decisions around our management system and our tools that we have, and we kept going back to those principles to make sure that we were always focusing on that. We looked at kind of established practices as well. I think I mentioned this in Baltimore that I reflected on Jean-Christophe Lacause's comment around not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and that's true. You can't just say, oh, let's look at all this new trendy stuff and then toss all these well-established programs out the window. And we got to kind of think about what people like to use, and what their maturity level is at in the company, and how do we kind of weave all those things in. So we spent the 2 years really trying to get to a point where we've got what I call the bells and whistles, and we think we've got all the things. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. We're always in that vein of continuous improvement, but we think we've got a pretty good service offering now for the whole business, and so when we filled our submission in, it really focused on celebrating that journey of trying to get to that point, and we talked about all those things that we did over that journey. But I have to be honest with you that I remember talking to Corey about this the year before when we met in California and the awards program, and I've always struggled with awards programs and thought, okay, and it's living in Canada. I always makes me think of the band Rush. And everybody's heard of Rush, I think, in this country. And there's a song that they sing, and it's a famous song. And there's a line in that song. It says, "Glittering prizes cause endless compromises and shatter the illusion of integrity." And or something like that anyway. And I always reflect on that. I think, yeah, when you celebrate, pride comes before a fall, and we don't want to kind of pat ourselves on our back too much about, hey, we've done this fabulous job. But what I did want to do was celebrate the effort and celebrate the good work that everybody's done and the collaborative way we did that with involving people at the pointy end of the stick who've got to use these tools to practice their work and so that's what really focused on when we built the program and got to the point where we're at today. So that was the point I wanted to get across in Baltimore really was to
Yeah.
celebrate the effort and the journey of where we're at, and I'm proud of that. And that's kind of that's my story anyway, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. No, I appreciate that because I think that when Corey and Malcolm launched that award program, they wanted it to be, genuine and not a superficial celebration of safety, but really celebrating all the hard work that's done. And Miriam, like when Nigel, if Nigel brought it up and introduced the survey or the award. I don't want to call it a form because it's much more comprehensive than that. But when you first looked at it, what was your thought? For companies maybe thinking about, entering into this process, what were your initial thoughts when you saw the award
Well,
submission?
I think, we can assess where we are, but it's always nice filling this form and submitting and getting this award. It kind of confirmed by external, like our peers, to assess the work we've done. So it is not only
Yeah.
us assessing what we've done and, collaborating with everyone in the business and being proud of the journey the milestones that we have accomplished and what we have ahead of us, but it's also at this point, it's like, okay, wow, okay, no, we are now recognized that our peers, they also recognize the effort and that we are in the right directions. So for me, like when Nigel got that prize, it was for me a recognition that yeah, we are going in the right direction, not only because of our trends of what we see inside the business, but from an external point of view.
And that's one of the points I think is that you submit your program. Corey and Malcolm and the steering committee kind of look at it, but then it is opened up to the peers to vote on as well. So you presented your case study, I'll say, at the conference, and then there was a live voting component that took place at the conference to kind of get that peer involvement and recognition as well. So
Yeah,
thanks for bringing that up. And then when you came back, to the office and let everybody know,
yeah.
how was that received?
Really, honestly, really well. The It's I can remember when I joined WSP, I was chatting with Marie-Claude Demar, who's our president and CEO for the Canadian business, and she was like, "Hey Nigel, and WSP really isn't known in industry around HSE, and we've got really great things, and we do really good things, and we've got lots of people that are very innovative, and but we don't have anybody talking about us in this kind of forum, and so." She wanted obviously to see how we stood up against industry and our competitors as well.
Right.
So for her, I know she'd be delighted at that, and that that this while yeah, and like I say, I struggle with awards sometimes, but it's nice that it comes, like Miriam said, from your peers and in industry, and which is makes it a lot more credible and valuable in terms of that. So I think it gives some comfort to our business that we know that we're on the right track. The we Miriam and I were recently last week, in fact, we were in Toronto, Ontario, at the Canadian Leadership Team Conference. So this is 400 or so of the senior most leaders in the business all descend on the Sheraton Hotel for a few days, and we got to share our success at that conference, and it was received very well by the people in the room. They're delighted, but I think in the conversations with those people in the room afterwards, those are more interesting to have with people, and they're really happy because they've seen the transformation over the past couple of years or so in the company. Because a lot of people join WSP not through applying for a job and then coming to work for us. They've joined through an acquisition or another company. So that's been a challenge for people to come into an organization and think, okay, well, how do things work here? And so for a lot of people, they mourn the loss of their previous company, and then
Right.
they're faced with, hey, what does it look like in this company? So the work that they've seen over the past couple of years has given people a great deal of comfort, knowing that there's been a significant investment in time and energy to help care for and protect our people, and so they've been delighted to see the efforts of that and see it recognized in this way. The there lots of people came up to me to talk about it afterwards, and wanted to understand what it was a little bit more, and what SOTI is as well, and what the
Right.
organizations. They were asking questions about Saferpedia as well. I was literally talking to somebody this morning about Saferpedia, and so yeah, it generates more conversation, and in the business, we're not short of innovative people as well, and people that are they're high achievers. They want to do well. They want things to be better. They want things to be efficient and more harmonized and simplified. And in fact, Miriam and I are working on as part of a collaborative company-wide project right now called Program Impact, where we're working on how to harmonize our HSEQ management system into the business even further, and so lots of conversations around that and how we can continue to improve, because that's kind of the next step now. Is people are like, well, what's next? Where do we go from here?
Right.
And we've got the bells and whistles. Where do we go next? How do we improve that adoption of our program? How do we continue to grow our overall culture of our company? And so we're looking at how do we integrate seamlessly our HSEQ practice into how we do our business. So again, it goes back to those hot principles and HRO principles, and thinking about accepting that we're not perfect and people make mistakes, but learning is the key to improvement. We're a learning organization, so
Yeah.
those are the things that the discussions that we had post award, but it was shared broadly. The award is proudly in our Montreal head office. So yeah, it's been well received.
That's great.
If I may add to that, just to talk about the reaction of the team, of the HSSCQ team. Um, in the last 4 years since the acquisition, in the last 4 years we did a major acquisition with Golder and WSP together. So since that acquisition, there has been a lot of changes in the team's life, in the way that they work, in standardization and creating the team we have today and the structure we have today. So we've been very flexible and pivoting and agile and all of these things, and having this award was for them kind of a realization that what, it was worth it. We're going in the right direction. It was kind of confirmation that we're doing the right thing. So for the team, they were all happy and proud. So
Yeah, that's great. And then just because obviously you mentioned chatting to people at the SOTI conference, so you guys got to attend as well, and maybe well I've got you, I'll ask you for your opinions about the conference and what people who aren't familiar with it could expect if they're thinking about attending next year.
Yeah, and we Miriam and I talked about this for our own team, even thinking, hey, do we try to weave this into a broader audience within our own team. I think what I've personally liked about SOTI, and I've been to lots of conferences over my career, and what I liked about it was that it is more personable. You can go to these much bigger events that have thousands and thousands of attendees, but they're much more difficult to network in, and often a lot of the content is it's more it's very
entry
broad
level.
and entry level stuff. Yeah, whereas I found that well, SOTI had some entry level stuff for sure. There a lot of it is it's you're getting some of the best speakers in the world attending there, and some of the people that are really on the cutting edge and providing a very new, refreshed perspective for people. So that's the main parts about it. The fact that you can network easier, you can have more useful conversations with people. So if others are thinking of going, I'd certainly recommend it to those that are in safety leadership roles or in more senior parts of their careers, or those who are looking to specialize into a certain path within their career as well. I think it would be very, very helpful for that. I think and when I was asked to give feedback as well, which is that's great that the SOTI ask for feedback because they always want to improve and get better too. Um, how you don't want to become that massive conference that and fall into the same traps as the other one, because I think you could very easily do that because of the success and the effort that people put in. He's going to generate a lot of interest, but it's making sure that the it stays fresh and you're staying at that cutting edge and keeping the content super interesting for people, and it'll keep people coming back. The Yeah, I think that's probably how I characterize it best.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And spoiler alert for next year, they are picking a location that will limit again the number of attendees because they definitely want to keep that intimate feel. So for anybody
Yeah,
who's thinking about going, I know they dabbled a little bit with partnering with NSC and having some of the event at the conference center, but they're going back to more intimate setting for next year. I mean, Nigel, you were there in the inaugural year in Berkeley, and I had a similar thought of like, how are you gonna outdo this first year with the level of speakers that they had? But they definitely seemed to, to keep pace and even outdo themselves year two when it came to the speakers and the sessions. They had the benchmarking and the workshops, so
yeah.
I thought it was pretty amazing to pull all those
It's
people together.
yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, um, to try to keep it fresh and interesting and new, and people are doing this off the corner of their desks as well.
Right.
I've put on events myself, and I know the level of effort involved is enormous. And I think there's a great team of people that are involved, and I know for me, I'll keep shouting from the rooftops about it. I find it, a great event and really useful. And to step away from the day-to-day maelstrom is really important too. The old sharpen the saw, comes to mind, and so I'd encourage anybody to if you're looking for where to spend your budget next time, that's always the challenge too, is thinking you've got such a lot of offerings, like where do you spend? I think this for me was high value, and one that I would continue to support and join.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on winning, much deserved, and it feels like the recognition was greatly appreciated internally, and again with the peers who attended the conference. So any kind of closing comments for people who might be thinking about attending next year or submitting for the awards? Are we going to have Myriam do a benchmarking session next year now that you guys are publicly recognized as leaders in safety?
Yeah, Miriam, jump in as well if you like. But I definitely recommend attending for in terms of the awards thing. I think it's worth going through that process because it helps you reflect on where you're at and what your journey is. And I think for me as a leader, I've enjoyed the leadership challenge in the past couple of years. It's um, what it reminds you of is what is your goal, and what is your vision, and what is your plan, and it takes you back to that. So, even if you're not successful in winning in this kind of award, the process of going through that analysis is useful in itself because it makes sure that you have a vision and you've got a plan. It's funny. I went to Sunday school a lot as a kid. My mum was a Sunday school teacher, and I don't profess to be a preacher or anything like that. Any means now, but I remember one thing. It's from the Book of Proverbs. It said something like, "Where there is no vision, people perish." Was the phrase, and I can't remember which specific part of the Book of Proverbs it was, but if you think about that, where there is no vision, people perish. Where there is no plan, where there is no structure, no goal, things go wrong, and it's very relevant to safety. So going through the application process, make sure that you've got a vision and a plan, and it keeps check on that. And obviously, if you're successful in winning something, it does give you a degree of validation that you are on the right track and you're going in the right direction. But it's kind of fun as well. It takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit,
Yeah.
and Miriam always say, "Oh, Nigel, you're so good at this public speaking stuff." I absolutely hate it. It's not for me. But I always feel good when I've done it. But it does push me out of my comfort zone, and you get to celebrate a little bit about the journey you've been on. So, yeah, I encourage anybody to apply. Um, you've got options for smaller companies and bigger companies like WSP as well. So you're not ruled out based on the size of your organization. And then in terms of attending, it's just a great way to network and get connected to people. And I know Miriam, you got a lot more connections out of it as
Yes.
well this time round. And that I always reflect back on that. The Berkeley, California event is one of my favorite events I ever went to. I really enjoyed it there. Not that I didn't like the Baltimore one; that was great too. But the first year was really transformational for me. So yeah, and I appreciate the time to talk about WSP a little bit in our journey, and thanks for the outreach, Scott.
Yeah, you're welcome. Miriam, did you want to add to that as we close out?
I think Nigel did a pretty good job at it, but I'll
Yeah.
think about. I'm gonna step back. I'll think about your proposal with Nigel. Maybe we can share things at the SOTI next year, and we can look into what we would have to share that would be maybe of good value for our peers. So I'm not committing to it, but we'll take a look at
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
But as
We'll
Nigel said,
put it in your performance plan, Miriam. And
oh, there you go.
Yeah.
we're joking.
Yeah.
But thank you for reaching out and giving us the opportunity to talk more about our journey and WSP and yeah, where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, again, congratulations and thank you so much for jumping on with me today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.